Hi, this is Tori Smith of the Madeley Beacon. Again here with comic paranormal author Andy Zach. Andy, it's hard to believe you got another great book, Paranormal Privateers.
It's the third in the Life After Life series following zombie turkeys and my undead mother-in-law.
Is Paranormal Privateers available for purchase right now?
You bet.
Paper copies and ebook?
As always, on Amazon and my own website, andyzach.net.
What excerpt are you reading today?
As I always like to do, I'll read part of the first chapter entitled Somalia.
I don't think I can wait any longer.
Then here we go. Chapter 1, Somalia. Dirac sighed with relief when the U.S. flag came down and the surrender flag went up on the mast of the Titanic luxury yacht. He didn't mind firing rounds from his AK-47 over their heads, but he hated killing people. He knew they were only infidels, but they were still people. Inhaling the salted breeze, he grinned back at Muhammad. He cheered and laughed in his seat behind the M2 machine gun in the bow of the boat they used to patrol the coasts and fishing waters of Somalia. The sun gleamed off his white teeth. "Look, Dirac, they're stopping." True enough, the bow wave ceased as he watched. A pod of dolphins ended their sporting on the wave and submerged. The gleaming white yacht loomed over them. What were they doing in the fishing waters of Somalia? He couldn't imagine the wealth on board, enough for their whole village to eat well for a year. Their supreme leader, Omar Ogalla, organized Somali fishermen and former Coast Guard sailors to patrol their fishing waters. He ordered them to capture any fishing or cargo vessels they spotted. He told them the Americans and Europeans no longer cared about Somalia with the other crises around the world, and they could defend their coasts from foreign competition and dumpers. Many foreign nations, knowing Somalia's military weakness, sent cargo ships full of pollutants and dumped them into their waters. Dirac never expected to see a luxury ship here. It was as big as a cruise liner, but apparently a private yacht. He'd seen one once before when an Arab sheikh visited Mogadishu. This one was 3 times the size. The owner would pay big to get it back, maybe even $1 billion. He couldn't imagine that much money, and he was good with numbers. Let's see. 14 million people lived in Somalia. Divide $1 billion among them would give each about $70. Unbelievable. A family of 5 could live comfortably for a year on that. He came along as a navigator, fighter, and boarder, guiding their boat along the shore of Somalia and into the Arabian Gulf for several days before leading them back. Besides Muhammad and him, there was Zahi, another fighter and boarder, and Ali, their captain. "Dirac," Ali said, "you and Zahi board this ship and take the helm. You will follow us back to Habyo. Muhammad and I will stay on the boat and keep the machine gun on them." "Yes, sir," he said. Ali took the megaphone they carried for ship-to-ship communication. "Let us aboard! Let us board, or we'll gun your ship!" Dirac didn't understand English, of course, but he knew what Ali was saying. Ali was the only one who knew any English. "Don't shoot! Give us time! We have to get our ladder!" Surprisingly, the person spoke in Arabic. Good Arabic, too, but with a strange Saudi and European accent. More surprisingly, it was a woman, a blonde from what he could see of the figure leaning over the railing far above them. He kept a close watch on her, strictly for security purposes, of course. They kept their boat about 50 meters away from the ship and watched the crew scurry about the many decks. Dirac counted 5, including the main deck, and there were at least 3 more decks below the main one. Finally, a rope ladder unrolled from the main deck, perhaps 10 meters above them. They came close to the ship. A pod of dolphins flashed under the boat. Then they leapt out of the water and into it. Only they weren't dolphins he had seen before. 4 people in green wetsuits landed with heavy thumps in Dirac's boat. They had no breathing equipment, not even snorkels. They took off their goggles and their eyes shone bright red in the sun. "Zombies!" Ali cried. "Shoot them!" Automatically, Duroc sprayed the nearest with his AK-47. He heard the others fire too. Muhammad shot the largest one with a big 50 caliber machine gun. That could cut a man in two. Dozens of red craters appeared in the green wetsuit of the one Duroc shot. But she, a white, brown-haired woman, didn't go down. Her brows furrowed in anger, and shouting in English, she ripped the gun from his hand and threw it into the ocean. He was like a baby with a rattle, taken away by his parent. The other zombies did the same, except for the big one. He grabbed the barrel of the machine gun in both hands and wrenched it from Muhammad. Duroc could hear the zombie's flesh sizzle on the hot barrel. Then the big zombie bent the barrel into a right angle. Rubbing his hands together afterward, the burned skin fell on the deck of their boat. Pink skin showed on his palms. He was enormous, bigger than two Somalis put together. His red eyes looked out of his calm, square face. The bullets from the machine gun had sliced the wetsuit open across his chest, and more pink skin showed in the gap. As he watched, brown hair grew. The fighters were all struck dumb with shock and terror. Then the woman Duroc had shot called up to the blonde woman on the main deck. She yelled down in Arabic, "All of you, lie down on the deck and you will live." They quickly obeyed. Duroc heard a splash. Apparently, she'd dived into the water. She then leapt from the water and landed in their boat. "I will direct you, and you will listen and obey," said a tall, shapely blonde woman with bright red eyes. She asked each of their names and roles and plans for taking the yacht. She consulted briefly in English with the others. "Very well, we'll follow through with your plans. Duroc and Zahi will come on board with us. Ali and Muhammad will stay in the boat, and we'll all go to Habyo." Numbly, Duroc climbed the rope ladder to the deck, following Zahi. He tried to process all he had learned in the few minutes of their aborted attack. "They hijacked us. But they're zombies. They want to follow our plan. But they're zombies. We're going to Habyo. But they're zombies. What will happen there? But they're zombies." He tried to remember everything he'd heard or read about zombies. They were some kind of Western fad, and then they became real. They fought in the U.S. and in England. They were fast and super strong, just as he'd seen in the last few minutes. And they regenerated, quickly, even from death. Zahi went over the railing and onto the main deck. Duroc followed him, looking around. A crowd of people greeted them, led by the red-eyed man and woman he had shot. They talked in English among themselves, and most held phones. He heard a female voice behind him, the translator from the boat. She spoke in English to the crowd and then to them in Arabic. "I'll translate for you, but most people have English to Arabic translator apps on their phones. Please be patient and answer any questions we have. We have a lot to learn from you before we get to Habyo." Her words barely registered as Duroc's eyes feasted on her curvy figure under her wetsuit. He tore his gaze off her figure to her eyes. They shone bright red under a broad brow with blonde eyelashes and a square chin. She could be a marble idol from a Greek temple, a zombie goddess. "What are your plans when we get to Habyo?" he asked. "Why, we'll be kidnapped and held for a ransom." She smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Duroc had ever seen. "My name is Sharon. Let me show you the ship and your quarters, Duroc and Zahi." To the aft, on the main deck, was a beautiful swimming pool overlooking the transom dock between the two outside hulls. Duroc marveled at the luxurious wooden paneling on the inside. More wonders followed. They climbed marble steps to the next deck. Many rich staterooms surrounded the enclosed atrium. Ahead was a movie theater. "Here's your room. You and Zahi will stay here." She went to the adjacent room and called out in English. An adorable little dog ran to her and jumped 3 feet into her arms. Its eyes glowed red, too. "This is Her Majesty Margaret, Maggie for short. She'll be your personal escort." She grinned and spoke to the dog in English. "She only understands English, but she knows to follow you wherever you go. She'll make sure you don't do anything bad." "How?" Duroc asked. Watch. Sharon went into the stateroom and came out with a meat-covered bone. It was nearly as big as the dog. The dog sat and watched her with beady red eyes, its whole body quivering. Sharon tossed the huge bone to the dog. Before it hit the floor, the dog leapt, grabbed the meat, and with a shake of its head, ripped it from the bone. It gulped and grabbed another bite. Before Durock's eyes, in less than a minute, it stripped the meat from the bone and began gnawing. Sharon spoke again, and it stopped. Maggie's a great guard dog, but she's the kind to bite first and ask questions later. Don't provoke her by going into other people's rooms, striking people, or damaging anything. Her bite is much worse than her bark. Will you keep her fed? He asked. Sharon looked at her watch. Oh, it's time for their feeding. Let's watch. Sharon led them down to the main deck, then to a set of stairs going to the transom dock. A 10-meter boat nestled there with its catch of fish. Watch! She pointed to the deck of the boat. The men dumped their net full of fish. A 10-foot shark wriggled out, still snapping. The fishermen gaffed it in the gills with a hook and swung it to the deck next to the dock. A howl of barking and yipping came down the stairs. 40, 50, 100 of the zombie corgis attacked the thrashing shark. It didn't thrash long. After the corgis gobbled for a minute, only a skeleton remained. Allah deliver us, Zahi gasped. Durock had never known him to be pious, but he sounded devout for a change. Sharon's red eyes glinted as she said, I'd be really careful not to provoke Maggie. These doggies can smell blood anywhere on the ship, and they all come running. I've got things to do now. I'll give you these and go. She handed them each a phone and showed them how to use the translator app. Just speak Arabic into it, and out comes English. Try it. Who can I ask to give us a tour? Durock asked. Out came English gibberish. Allah Akbar, Zahi said. He sounded devout. Maybe he was reforming. Out came Allah gobbledygook. Good, you've got it. Have fun exploring. Lunch is in an hour on the deck above you. She walked away. The dog eyed them readily. Good doggy, Durock said into the translator. The English noise came out, but the dog's watchfulness didn't change.
Wow, that's exciting.
Well, that's no surprise. My brain has never been imitated or duplicated.
I can hardly wait to read the book.
Get with the program. Go to Amazon and order Paranormal Privateers, or look up Andy Zach. Or go to my website, andyzach.net, and look under the book tab. You can order my books there, and I'll sign each copy.
I'll get right on it. That's all for this week. Stay tuned for another exciting excerpt from Paranormal Privateers.